Hello, my name is Mr. Mark and welcome to this Art Aside on my YouTube channel. This is a live off-the-wall recording. Today we're painting Will Smith and I'm sure it'll be a great hit. But first, a little credit where credit is due. This technique is based on the work of Edmonton artist Frank Haddock. And if this at all piques your interest, then I suggest you check out some of his courses at the Artra Art School. Artra is spelled A-R-T-R-A. Let's see what we have on the desk here. We can get started. Okay, we have a number of things. I've traced the image of Will Smith, not because I can't draw, not because you can't draw, but just to speed up the process. There's a number of other things that are important. I have a fondue plate, not because I'm hungry, but this will be my palette. It has nice deep pockets. I have a hairdryer to dry things off. I have clear water, 2 of them. One will be dirty and the other one I'll try to keep as clear as possible. I have a number of brushes. Now, it's not that I don't use many more brushes, but just these 3 will be required today. A 12 round, a 6 round, and a 1-inch flat. I also have a sponge. We'll do a little bit of painting with sponge and the cloth to dry off. I also have paper towel, just in case, for these emergencies when you need to dab something off. I have a syringe. The syringe has water in it. Of course, I can grab my brush and dip it in the water and add it to my palette, and then I have water on my palette. But once your brush is full of paint, you don't want to go back and forth into that water because you'll lose the pigmentation that's in your brush. So a syringe with water is excellent. I have a spritzer. Sometimes an area needs a bit of water and I don't want to use it with a brush. I just want to do it with a spritzer. That's when that comes in handy. I have masking fluid here, drawing gum, and I have soap, water with soap. After I've used a cheap brush and the masking fluid, I will clean the brush in a soap water solution. That way the masking fluid comes off the brush. Okay, really important. I have my painting colors here. These are the 3 primaries that I'm going to use: ultramarine, azo yellow, and Kodacodone rose. Kodacodone rose is kind of towards the purple and it'll make great purples. Now, I also, on occasion, I will use a different blue, and that's phthalocyanine blue. If you've painted with phthalocyanine, you know that the phthalo effect is quite strong in the greens and the blues, and so sometimes this is what's called for, but mostly the 3 primaries. I also have a tester on which I can test the paint, and that is it. Oh, hang on, one last thing. Now, if you don't have painting tubes, but you're painting with something like this, that also works. It has a yellow, a red, and a blue, as well as a bunch of other colors. I suggest not using the black. I suggest using the complementary color to mix black. It'll create a much richer black than the black that's on here. This image is traced. How did I trace that? I made a photocopy of the photo, put graphite with a graphite stick on the back, put it on here, traced, and then we have the image. I have my image affixed with 4 little pieces of tape in each of the corners, and there are many different ways in which paper can be mounted on the board. Sometimes you can tape it all the way around with strong butcher's tape, for example. That'll prevent the paper from curling up. Now, the way I prevent that these days is by simply mounting my watercolor paper on stretching bars, and that creates a really strong system, and then the paper won't buckle either. So that works. When it's here like this, it will curl a bit, but it's not a big deal because in the drying process with the blow dryer, we can get some of these waves in the paper out quite easily, and I'll show you when we get there. So let's get started. The first part is a wet on wet. We can attack this really many different ways, but I'm going to start with the wet on wet. Sometimes I don't start with the wet on wet. I'll start with the darkest areas first. Sometimes I'll start with the light areas first. But let me show you this one. I like it. So we're starting with a light wet on wet. and we're getting some of the basic colors of the whole figure down on paper right away. So none of the areas are white anymore, and that's especially here. We'll do some purple here. We'll do some orange. We'll do some green here. We have a bit of creative license, and we can choose to liven it up a little bit. So there'll be color everywhere on the figure. But, let me switch to this view, but there are a few areas that we don't want to get paint on. And those are, maybe you can tell, the little glints in the eyes. Now, if you're painting with acrylic or with oil, that's the part you do last. You do a little dab of white right there in the eyes, and you get that glint. Okay, great. With watercolor, you can put some gouache on top, but if you want to stick purely to watercolors, then we need to keep the white of the paper. How to do that? That's with the masking fluid. And I'm just putting it in a few areas. The most important areas, oops, that's more than enough, will be here, the glints in the eyes. There. Make sure they're really tiny areas. Now, there are a few other areas in the face, such as on the nose, and here, and on the lip, which I could do as well, and I have done that before, but I'm not going to today. I will just use a brush to scrub away the paint there when I want to retrieve that highlight. I did this painting once, many moons ago, on a little bit of a bigger sheet of paper, a 22 by 30 inch piece of paper. And you can see I'm at the stage where I have masking fluid on areas such as some of the hairs in the beard and here, and I haven't worked with it yet. So the masking fluid is on there. This jacket is still unfinished. And the masking fluid is just erased on the nose, and so you can see those white areas. It's one way of going about it. We're working in such a small area, I think we can just get away with some scrubbing. There. The masking fluid right now is drying. This takes a moment. So I'm going to pause the recording, and when this is dry, just a couple of minutes, we'll resume with that wet on wet. And we are back. The masking fluid has dried. At the very end of the process, we'll take it off. You can simply rub that off with your finger or use one of these cement erasers. Looks a little dirty, doesn't matter, to get rid of that masking fluid. If you forgot to do masking fluid, but you do want the highlights and you don't want to put paint on top, because you can kind of tell that there's paint on top of like a flat layer of watercolor, you can use an X-Acto knife to scratch in a highlight. But once you've scratched, you cannot paint there anymore because the water will respond very differently. But that's another way to do a highlight. I don't do it very often, but I know it's an option. Let's start with that wet on wet. We need to mix our colors. We have a good number of colors to mix. So let's do that. We're doing two types of purples. Now purple, as you know, is just blue and red. We're making a purple that's more towards the blue, and we're making a purple that's more towards the red. This is the blue violet. Oops. And this will be the red violet. I'm adding some water. I don't want this to be extremely potent. This can be a little bit watery. There. Okay. Mixing back and forth a bit. Okay, not a huge deal. I am mixing it around to check how thick it is. Okay, I think I like that. And of course, a sure way to find out would be to use a tester. Okay, so this is the purple, the blue purple. This is the red purple. Okay. That's how thick it is. I would like a bit of red. Let's see. Well, you know what? Yeah, for the lips. Well, let's go to the orange right away. I think we'll be okay for those lips. We'll just use the red violet. Okay, that's plenty bright. I think I would like this a hair duller. So I'm going to add some of its complement. Oops. To just make it a slightly dirty orange. But not too dirty. Okay. I almost made it too brown. While the final color will be brown, some of these underlaying colors, we can be a little bit creative with them. And put some, like almost too bright of a color underneath. Because when we paint over top of it, they'll mostly get lost anyways. So we want them to shine through. So it doesn't matter. It's okay to exaggerate a bit. Okie dokie. Let's get rid of that orange that I've accidentally spilled here. I need a green. So let's do a green. If I was Bob Ross, the colors would now be scrolling at the bottom of the screen, but sure ain't. Okay, great. Any green will do. That'll be for the jacket. Well, actually, almost any green. Let me make it a little darker. A little bit of red to it. There. Need to grab a little bit of extra blue. Put the paint on the ridges of the palette. That seems to work. Okay, that's where I want it to go. It's a forest green, an army green, something like that. You know what? I have space on my palette. Let's do that red that I talked about earlier. Just a little bit. Oops. Okie dokie. That's great. I've used one of my buckets of water to clean the brushes. This one is still clear water, and this is the one I will use to put a layer of water on the whole figure. This is the wet and wet technique. As in, there's a layer of wet, clear water, and we are putting our paint into that layer of water. This is not just moist paper, this is really wet paper. My paper is flat, and there's a layer of water everywhere. Make sure you stay within the bounds of the figure, although you could do it for the background too. This demonstration will not do that. But I've done that plenty of time, and that works too. We do all the muted colors, all the sort of background colors for the whole painting, including the background. Works great too. This will also be a test if you made your lines dark enough, because as soon as we're going to put on the paint, some of these pencil lines will disappear. Now, if you've lost your drawing a bit after all the painting, you can try to retrieve it with pencil by drawing it back in before proceeding with the steps after this. Okay, great. We've with the 1-inch brush put water everywhere. If I tilt my head a little bit, I can see the reflection, and you can see it too in the screen a little bit. The reflection. That there's water everywhere. So now have about a minute or so to put in all the colors. Okay, we'll probably just do a light to dark kind of thing. We'll start with the orange. Put that here. I notice my orange is not very strong. Okay, I'm quickly gonna mix it slightly stronger. There. Because there's water on the paper, it gets diluted. Whatever I put on here, it gets diluted right away. Okay, this is a perfect amount of water. Except for here, it starts to pull a little bit. But that's all good. Next up, do some of that red on the lips here. Okay, later we'll do purples on the lips, I think, but now we're putting some of that red. Some of the red violet on the forehead. Yeah, when you're painting this, you might be like, oh, no, this is going to be a disaster. What are we doing? Fear not. Okay, there's just a pool here, so I'm pushing some of that water off. Yeah, something like that. Use some of the blue violet here. Slightly more in the shadow area of the forehead. Okay, there sure is enough water here. Okay, works. Yeah. Now, I actually want blue here, but I just went with purple because I don't mind when it mixes a bit. I like it. Okay, blue here. I'd be like, blue. This is quite a light area, and it's nice to indicate that with a bit of blue. So, there. I'm going to move slightly back and forth between the different layers, so that to mix those colors a little bit, because they're a little bit too compartmentalized for my preference. They don't have to be that compartmentalized. Definitely not. Okay. A bit of purple here. There. Okay. I usually have my image right in front of me so that I can go back and forth and go, okay, what's going on there? I actually might put a bit of green here. Beards are usually green. Now, dark skin tone and light skin tone require slightly different. I find, ooh, that's quite ambitious here. I find that with light skin tones, I need to use more greens, but the beard area, okay, can use a little bit. There. Oh, water. The jacket, we shall also put green on. Zip. And underneath here, a little bit of orange. Okay. Yeah, there is sure is plenty of water everywhere. A little bit too much. But better than dry, because once it's dry and you put on more wet paint, you'll get lines, and those are definitely something you want to avoid. Okay. Okay. A little bit here. There. You'll notice there's some pooling going on. Try to dab that up a bit. Dabbing and painting. So nothing is speed up in this video, so if you're painting along and I'm going a bit too slow, you can increase the play speed of YouTube. And if I'm going a bit too fast, you can always pause the video. Okay. Oh, and the ear. What was I thinking? Oh, there goes my orange. Went slightly past the drawing here. I mean, this is not, that's okay. This is not, you know, you don't have to treat this like a paint by numbers kind of painting either, even though we've drawn the image. So a little bit of blue violet and some of the darker areas. We're starting to see that shape already, which is nice. I think I'll do a bit of red and purple here. Definitely a big bulge in the paper there, which is okay. I might just get the tape off of here too. Okay. I think we can leave it at that. So we will let this dry. And yeah. Okay. Knowing when to stop. We'll let this dry. Once it's at a point where the most of the surface is moist and not wet, you can use the hair dryer. But in the beginning, just be careful that you don't use the hair dryer too quickly, because you might push the paint around everywhere with the speed of the hair dryer. So I think I'm comfortable. I'm going to start with the hair dryer at a little bit of a lower speed, and then I'll do a higher speed, and I will mute my microphone. You could see that I was struggling a bit with a line that started to create in my painting. So I've got to be really careful. It's not dry yet. Yeah, got to be really careful. I might just to be on the safe side, spritz this area wet again, because I don't want it to dry and then create a line. I was angling it a bit to move that paint around, but what I noticed is that I was moving it in this direction into the area that was already dry. And when you do that, angling is a great technique, and letting it run in a certain direction. But it was going right into the dry area, and yeah, then it would have created a line there, which would have been a little, even though we are going over it with many other colors, would have been hard to really get away. Okay. What you'll see me do is curve the paper while I dry it with the blow dryer, and that's to get some of those wobbles out of the paper. Great technique, and that's why I don't really tape it down. Another reason why I don't really tape it down, I'm going to show you right now, is I had some water pooling underneath the paper, simply because I made it so wet. So some people really like to tape watercolor paper all the way around, but once you have water pooled underneath, or it gets moist, it's really hard to get rid of, unless you remove all the tape. But with this technique of just sort of taping it in the corners, good enough kind of thing, you can get access underneath really well. Of course, the way I do it with mounting it on stretching bars also has no problem with pooling water. It's not quite dry yet, so I need to dry this area a little bit. Now, it's, some of the more astute observers might say, well, it sure looks like they had a couple of oopsies in the wet on wet, and that's true. This is not a perfect rendition of a wet on wet. I did this just the other day in a small demo like this, and it went much better. But fear not, because we're going to go over it with such dark colors. My paper is warping in all directions. Get a little bit more drying. All right, the paper needs to be very dry for the next step. Okay, what is the next step? We will mix a paint. I think just this one will work just fine. But we'll make it a bit darker, of a blue purple. So now that we have the basic colors laid out here, a bit of a green blue here, orange tints here, we can move in with some darker colors. Let me get rid of a bit of water from this one. There. Make this darker. I am mixing this color with a little brush, and this is the brush I'm going to use. It's a 6 round. Most of my watercolor brushes are a mix of synthetic and animal hair. The beauty about animal hair brushes is that they hold a lot of water, which with watercolor is what is really nice. But synthetic brushes bounce back and hold their strength a little bit better. They sometimes some synthetic brushes, some animal hair brushes, like this one, for example, it's an imitation squirrel. Okay, when it's wet, and it's bent, it can sometimes really stay bent, which can be a little annoying. So these are all blend brushes. I'm just going to add a tad of yellow to the purple, just a smidget, so it's not so it's slightly muted. It's slightly dirtied. This is like dirty purple. And this is the blue violet. Okay, I think we're dark enough. So this is the darkest one, and then we're moving to a light one after this. We are going to look at the image and say, okay, where are the darkest darks? Well, the eyebrows, for example. So there we go. a little bit in the eyebrows. Look at the photo when you're painting. So I definitely have that photo in front of you, but look at it while you're painting the lines, because in that way you'll copy the shapes from the image, which is often a little bit better than an eyebrow or a shape from your mind. We tend to make shapes too repetitive, too much like a pattern, and not random enough to imitate nature or a human face accurately. Okay, I'm not going to fill in that eye on this darkest layer because his eyes are brown and I want to show a bit of that brown, because when you nail the eyes on a painting, you often nail a lot of other things. Already thinking these eyes are slightly wonky. Okay. I've done it on the outside. I've gone in with little lines. Let's see if I can show that a little bit closer. I've gone in with little lines into the eye. Now we're going to do a lot of work on the eye still, so not to worry about this, but it's a little ring around the outside, little line around the outside, and little squigglies going in, just a smidgen, and then of course the pupil. Oh, sorry, the iris is black as well. Not black, this color that we're putting on, purple. Okay, looking at the image again, where is it dark? Where are the darkest darks? Let me put those in. Going back to that image, okay, underneath the eye, there's some dark, but it's not very dark. So I gotta be careful not to put too much there yet, or it'll look like he's really tired all of a sudden. Just gonna put a couple here, just like this, just a few marks, very light touches. This crease is dark. And the eyelashes we will do later. We'll do them over top of everything. So this is not the last dark layer that we'll be doing. With the nostrils, make sure it's the middle part. You can even kind of skip, because as you can tell in the image, it's quite light in the middle. It's really those two corners of the nostril that are dark. So do those with the darkest color. Okay. Then a little bit around the eye. It's okay if you don't make that a perfect line. In fact, sometimes it's better if you don't make that a perfect line, because we're not cartooning here. We are we're doing realism. Time and a place for everything, I guess. So I'm putting some of that blue violet here on the beard, mustache, part of the beard. Okay, great. Oops. The opening of the mouth, the observant person will notice that in the middle, that mouth opening has more black in it. And in the corners, that mouth opening is a little bit darker. So just like with this line around the nose, don't have to do that entire line. We know the mouth opening goes goes that whole distance, but if the dark doesn't show in the photo, then let's try to avoid it in our painting as well and keep it lighter. You'll be amazed at how much that increases the realism of it all. So it might be tempting to paint the hairs, and sure, move your brush in the directions of the hairs, of the mustache and of the beard, but don't paint every little hair. Look predominantly at the shapes shapes that the dark and light make on the beard. Where's it dark on the beard? Where's it light on the beard? Well, it's mostly dark at the bottom. So that's where you can put some of this dark. And especially, of course, in this area, by the chin, it's quite dark. And that's why we'll put some. See if I can speed up a bit here. I could have used a 12 round brush. I find this one a little bit tiny, but it's not a bother. It makes for smaller shapes, which will be nice. Some of the dark details are not these big honking brush marks, but are a little tinier. Yeah. Sometimes I'll paint with the 2 round if I want to do an eye with a lot of careful detail. If I'm doing a serious painting and or a sort of a more detailed painting, then I will work with smaller brushes, a 0 round, sometimes a 2 round, just to put in those really fine things like eyelashes or the little wrinkles around the eye, etc. Okay, I'm gotta look at this image of it. It makes a dark shape that kind of goes up to a point and then down. So let's see if I can imitate that flow of dark areas a bit. I am gonna totally cover this with another layer right after this. So I'm okay with these white areas. They'll get filled in. This paint is so dark it'll get reactivate on our next go. And where's that area? Okay. Sometimes your pencil drawing is a little wanting. That's okay. Then you get to be the artist and make it up. Once you've learned a technique a little bit, like this technique, you get to graduate, and you get to make your own drawings, and go from this process of replication to process of creating something uniquely your drawing, for example. But there's an art to this as well, replication. There's people sometimes who want you to paint, like make a painting of a photo that they have. So there's a time and a place for this, and there's an audience for this. Oops. Okay, I put quite a heavy layer here, but oh well. A little bit of purple here. But most of that jacket, I'm gonna do green. Yeah, not sure about this line. Make sure this is really dark too. Let's see, am I done? Maybe a little bit up here. Go in the direction of the hairs, make little hair marks, sort of, but look at that photo and go, okay, what kind of shapes are made there? Also, the paint kind of dried up ugly on this top, so I'm already trying to cover that. There. Okay, how does that hairline go? Just map it out slightly. Some darker darks. They'll get lost soon, so that's fine, but get a bit of a feel for where it's going here. Yeah. Oh. Watch out. Ideally, I paint from this corner to this corner, so I don't move my hand over my own painting areas, and then smudge everything. Okay, there's less and less paint on my brush as I paint along, and that's kind of nice because I just want to make really tiny marks. Yeah, don't want to miss the mark here. So we're entering territory dry brushing somewhat, but not quite. I think this is good. Yeah. So these are darkers. These are darks, the darkest darks for now. In some areas, this is already dry, so I'm not going to be too worried about it. For it to dry even more, I do want it to be dry. Here, I can definitely see the reflection if I angle my head, so I don't want to get in here right away. So I might quickly dry that, but by the time I've mixed a second color, lots of this will be dry. I'm just noticing that I have a few areas where I went outside of the lines. What I can do there to, if I do want to fix that, grab a piece of paper towel. This is nice. I like kitchen paper towel a lot better than sometimes the paper towel type you for example see in a washroom that's flat, because it simply doesn't absorb as much, and this does. Okay, this is a really cheap Crayola brush, little flat brush, and I scrub with it because my watercolor brushes are a bit too expensive to scrub with. These hairs are totally curled at the ends, so not good for painting, but fine for scrubbing. And I scrub it away, and then I dab up the water. So I scrub with clear water, dip it in clear water, and you can do this now, you can do this later. It doesn't really matter. I'm doing it quickly now. Oops, just to tighten up my painting a little bit, even though I might paint the background. A bit more clear water. We're going to use this little brush at the end too, so great one to have in the brush set for creating some of the highlights with a paint removal. I think the most important technique you've seen thus far has been the wet on wet. That's a really versatile one. But there'll be some more techniques coming up that are really helpful, such as the paint removal. Okay. Done. Second layer, we're going to move out from the darkest darks into the slightly lighter darks with a slightly different color. I have on my palette still this red violet, and I think I will use that. See how dark it is now. Some time has elapsed, so it's probably evaporated a little bit. So just for your clarity here on my little tester sheet. There. That was the first layer. And this is the second. I want it to be red. Let me think. Do I want it to be red now? Maybe not yet. So I'm gonna grab a little bit of this blue violet, making this red violet a little less red. Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, we'll go over it with red, and then the facial color will be just fine. But we're gonna put this for now. So these two colors were the wet on wet. Wow. And now for the actual painting that we're starting, this is number one, and this is number two. I'm gonna use a 12 round brush, a little bit bigger brush. It's lovely to use a 6 round for a bit and then 12 round and see, have both of the qualities of them show through in your painting, because the 12 round is going to make bigger, interesting shapes. Okay, so we are going to go over everything and make it darker. So we're going to cover what we've previously painted. Not too crudely. Be thoughtful as you make your brush strokes. What should we do about those lips? We can put in slightly darker areas of the lips already. I think just around here. We want to create that effect that that lip is a bit round. Is it above the lip is a slight light area, so we can, whoops, oh dear me, we can leave that in. And at the bottom here, I'm not going to do the entire beard yet. Just creeping into from the dark areas out into the slightly lighter areas, but not going to go all the way. Okay, here, make this paint here is pretty heavy. Make that just a couple of brush strokes, because if you start to meddle around too much in here, it becomes one big swamp and you lose the finer details. So when you cover these darks, move quick. Couple of brush strokes, then stop, then simply stop. Do not paint anymore after you've made a couple of those brush strokes, because it'll all become the same really quickly. And that's not what you want. Unless it is what you want, but it's not part of this technique. Okay. We know the jaw continues here, but just gonna leave that opening because in the image it's pretty light and it's just exciting, you know, it's exciting to our mind goes, yeah, it should be one, but it isn't. And oh, why? Oh, it's because of the light, of course. What was that? Okay. I think I'm dark enough in this neck. I don't need to quite go this dark. It is dark, but okay, let's see where we... I'm making some of the movements. There are wrinkles in his neck. And so I'm making the movements of my brush strokes along the lines of those wrinkles. I am darkening up some of the ear areas. Constantly, the ear is quite complex, so I'm looking at that photo while I'm painting, sort of 50-50. 50% at the photo, 50% at my painting, to make sure I get all the shapes right. This line around the outside of the ear, that one's pretty easy. Okay. Some of these shapes are more complex. Had we not done a pencil drawing, you could have done freehand painting or penciled them out yourself. I think at some point when you've done so many ears, it's like, okay, this isn't rocket science anymore. Where's my paint? I see a slight dark line outside the ear. So do that one. If you can't do it with a big brush, do it with a little brush. If your big brush is just, if you do the ear and your big brush is just too big, get a little brush. I used to work much more with a little brush. And that was, yeah, that was nice. Okay, I'm just going to do this whole area there. Make some big decisions. There's simply a shadow that comes from that ear. So let's put it in already. Oof. There. Some of the texture I can put in by not having too much water on my brush and very lightly moving it across the surface. And that's one way of doing it. Another way would be to grab a tissue and dry off the brush a bit and then sort of dry brush, which would be fun too, just like this. I've dried off the brush quite well, and now, okay, too well. Now you can see my brush makes, oops, not super great. Okay, if this is your first time dry brushing, test it on a piece of paper. So just go to your tester and go, okay, can I make this texture with my brush with not too much water on it, but still with pigment on it. Okay. I'm going to try to make some of these shapes slightly more natural, so the hard boundary is lost a little bit, but we will use the sponge in a bit, which also takes care of some of that. Okay. Nope, started on the wrong side. Expanding the eyes, eyebrows a little bit. Going over these lines, making them slightly bigger. It's okay if it gets in the eye a little bit. Mostly where it's dark in the eyeball is in the corner. Yeah, but we can do that later. Didn't really need to do that now. So slightly darken up these eyes. Oops, maybe I did a bit too much. We shall see. Usually eyes are the lightest at the bottom because the eyelash casts a shadow at the top. So it's usually a little bit darker in the eye below the top eyelash. Okay. Yeah, let's be brave and put in some fun shapes here. Okay. This is when you need to look at the photo and go, oh yeah, what does that look like? Oh, can I imitate that? Where are we? Back to the eye. Okay. But here. The eyelash, the bottom eyelash, rounds away out of our sight here. So in the area where it rounds away, it's usually a little darker. So that's why I'm putting a little bit of dark just in this corner here where it rounds away from us. Yeah, it might have been slightly excessive here on the purple, but can always scrub away a little bit. So, this is good. There are now 2 layers of purple on the face. Yeah, okay, let's let's evaluate for a moment. I now have 2 layers of purple on the face. They're in a lot of the areas where I want it to be. Okay, let me quickly put in some darks for that jacket. Then we have both darks for the face and darks for the jacket. Then we've got the darks covered, and then we'll do some sponging. So just before the sponging, let me make a darker green. I'm gonna use some phthalo. I want that jacket to have a bit of spunk, and phthalo sure does that. Yeah, you have a sample here? Oh yeah. So have a look at this. Yeah, this is clear. This is phthalo, and this is ultramarine. And you can really see that this is different. It's a blue, it borders on green, not quite, but this is the phthalo effect. And phthalo green will also kind of have this effect. Okay, ultramarine is much more like a cobalt in a way. Okay, they're different again, but it's this kind of a blue. Okay, for the jacket, I want this kind of a blue. Green, but I'm going to use the phthalo blue in it. So here, I've got that green still going. I'm just adding some phthalo blue. Okay. Yeah, and phthalo is a really strong color, so don't need a lot. I'm adding a bit of something else to just dull it down a hair. Okay, you can see it on the side of the palette. Very different blue from the ultramarine there. Now this has yellow in it, so slightly green. Right, yeah, what is this? It's sort of an aqua color, but if you start to add yellow to an ultramarine, it becomes navy. And if you add yellow to the phthalo, it becomes aqua. Okay, it will be bright, not to worry too much. It's just the undertone. We will go over things. I'm not sure how to do things here. Maybe just cover the whole area. Okay. It's kind of funny how it intersects. I'm not a huge fan how this block supports, doesn't support, kind of weird. Doesn't, okay. I need to think about that. That's not great. This one is easier almost. He's got sort of a corduroy jacket here. So I'm imitating some of those lines. Ever so slightly. There, don't want it to be, yeah, it's just the jacket, right? It just supports the head in the painting. It just supports the head. So we don't need to be too worried about it. So we already had some green there, and now we have this phthalo blue-green, aqua, if you will. But when we're painting, I don't often use fancy color names. I just say what's in it, because that's more helpful for us when we're mixing. Right, this is red violet, for example. Call it, I think in English it's maroon or something like that. Which is fine, but if we say red violet, then we know more precisely how to mix it, what's in it. Okay. There. Okay. You can sort of give your brush a push, and it will be good. You can be kind of random in your lines. Yeah, good. This is kind of boring, but we shall deal with that at a later time when we refine the jacket. Or we cut off the painting and make it just like the photo. Good. Yeah, water becomes dirty right away whenever you put a little bit of phthalo into it. It stains your brushes, and it dirties everything. But it's a lovely color. Now, if you are not very keen on how phthalo-cyanine blue dirties your water and your brushes, there's an alternative. I have it here somewhere. It's what is it? Prussian, I think. Yeah, there it is. It's Prussian, and Prussian blue has a lot of similar qualities to phthalo, but doesn't stain your brushes as much. If you're worried about your brushes staying all, nice and light. I am taking a little bit of a break here, and after the break, I will work with the sponge wherever it went to apply a lot of the texture of the beard and the face, and we will work with some more purple, go figure, a little bit of bluish purple and reddish purple. That'll be good fun. Continuing on with our hit painting of Will Smith, I would like to move into some sponge work just because it goes so fast. Sure, I can use a brush and do dry brushing to get the beard and the facial texture in, but when you've discovered the sponge, you're like, oh, there's such a fast way to do this. So what I have here is a red purple, go figure, and we'll use other colors at some point. And this red purple, I will dip my sponge into. It's fairly watery. No, it's actually fairly strong. Okay, let me show you here. Yep, that is fairly strong. We'll have to see if it's too strong. We'll add a little bit of water. Just gently dip my sponge into it. See, not the whole sponge is covered, just a little bit. I could try it out on a tester. If you are not sure how your sponge responds, then do try it out on a tester. I've just done this enough that I'm confident. Let's see. Yeah, are you watching this? Okay. Yeah, there we go. Nice bit of texture. Oops. And sometimes you get a little oopsie. So start in a start in a safe area where it's not too big of a deal if it messes up a bit. Now, ideally, we don't get big blobs. This is kind of it's a little bit the sponge is just a bit too saturated. But okay, we'll go with it. We'll roll with the punches. Oh. My teacher's gonna give me heck if he sees this. Okay. Yeah, no skin is without its texture, obviously. And this is, so easy. Bye-bye. Okay. I am staying out of the light areas. That is important. There. Goes into the eye. Eyebrow. Now, I may go back and do this again with a slightly different color, or I may move things around. So I'm doing this in areas of let's say, medium darkness. Definitely know when to stop. There's a point of, and it comes quite quickly, when things get oversaturated. Okay. I'm hearing background noises. And there on the nose, just one moment. Okay, a little bit on that beard here. Now, don't worry about doing too much. Oh, well, I just said watch out about doing too much. Okay, what I mean to say now is don't worry about going, staying out of certain areas of the face. Because quite a bit of that face can use texture. Except perhaps the cheek here, this triangle, Rembrandt's triangle. Try to stay out of there a little bit. Try to keep an area that's kind of clear on the nose where you have that highlight. Okay. Now when it dries up, it can dry up lighter, which it seems to do in this case. Okay. Oh, we've lost a connection here. My apologies. All right, having fixed that camera feed, let's see where we're at with this sponge work. I'm gonna apply a little bit more. That doesn't hurt. It's dried since, so in effect this would be a quick second layer. We're not. I'm not changing any of the amount of water or concentration of the paint. So just a couple of quick things. But since the paint has dried, it's probably slightly more concentrated. Okay, you can see where this is at. It might look like a hot mess, and oi, 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 is it ever? Where do we go from here? Okay, I'm gonna check my picture and see, okay, are some of the shapes a little bit off? Do I need to? Because this sponge is pretty angular, so sometimes it creates these angular shapes. Okay, I can see very clearly that that's a sponge. I think I need to go stronger on the shadow here. So when I look at this image, and what I sometimes like to print for myself is a posterized image. I posterized it in Photoshop, and then it brings out those layers. And here it shows quite clearly that I have a certain type of shadow going on right here. It's dark there. So in this forehead here, it just needs to be a little bit darker. It goes right by the eye. And we're making it darker with texture at the same time. Oh, what a win-win. There. Okay. Leave some open spaces. Texture is a process of contrast. So, oops. You'll see it best when it's got some contrast, some white areas to go against. Okay. Put a little bit more here. There's a little bit of dark spot in the middle of the forehead, going towards the top somewhat. Okay. I like these shapes slightly better. They're roundish. Okay, that roundish looks good. Yeah, it sure looks like a hot mess, but we're going over it with a flat brush with orange paint in a moment. And so all that detail will be washed out to some degree, which is what we want. Because right now it looks very odd. So, oh, Will Smith has it's got a bit of a fever here going on. Things don't quite look the way they do on television. Okay, I'm done with the sponge work. I'm gonna grab a small brush, and there's 6 round, and I'm just adding a tad of water to this red violet, and I'm gonna work on that ear because it needs a second look. I've done 2 layers in the ear thus far. Just grab a bit of that. Done 2 layers, but it needs a bit more attention. I'll make it slightly more red. Maybe even some orange. Okay. No, more red. Let's see. Okay. We can. Let me think. Yeah, this will be fun. It's a dirty red. It's dirty red, purple. Yeah, more like a dirty red purple. Yeah. How dark am I? This is exactly right. Okay. So it is slightly lighter than what we've got going there. Maybe extra water. So this would be the third layer on the ear, and I'm just giving it a bit of extra attention because the ear is intricate. And the small brush will help me get some of that detail in there that I need. So, look, there's dark at the top of the ear. Then there's a bit of dark that crosses over this edge of the ear and goes right in here. So I'm painting all of that. There. And I'm going over the existing paint that's here and adding the new layers. Okay, focusing a bit on round shapes because the ear was somewhat blockish. Didn't quite look all that good. Okay, there isn't as much texture with the sponging on the ear. I haven't done as much, and that's yeah, that's probably right. Because the ear really has quite a different texture from what facial skin has. So you notice maybe that by going over this purple, which was a blue purple, with some red purple, I'm changing what it looks like. I'm even changing what the blue purple looks like. It all of a sudden doesn't look so blue anymore. And that's good. Because now we're slowly getting to the color of the skin tone. But of course, the shadow areas, the dark areas, will maintain a bit of the blue tint, which will look good. Shadows a little cooler, highlights a little warmer. That'll look good. So, most of these pencil lines are now starting to disappear, but that's a-okay. Okay, that looks a lot better on that ear. Yeah, now it can always be refined, but I'll leave it at this for now. Let's see, maybe the eye, you know what, if an eye is done well, you're halfway to a great photo, to a great painting. So, I hope my head wasn't too much in the image. Let's see. Okay, the top of the eyelid is slightly darker. So let's go. Do that. Oh, try not to get it in the white of the eye too much. Well, we can get it in there a little bit, but only in the right spots. Okay. Let's see. Tapers here. Okay, where is the light part in that bottom eyelash? Okay, it's kind of in this area. And we can do paint removal and get it back, but if we leave it white, that's also really nice, because then we already got that done. Yeah, I'm bringing in some extra details here. They might not survive our big layer of orange, but maybe they will. I think it's necessary. So we've done 2 layers, a blue violet and sort of a middle violet, a middle purple with the brush. Then we did a red purple with the sponge, and now this is a dirty red purple. It's much more red than the sponge work, that's for sure. And I'm doing a 3rd layer with the brush, and this time with a tiny one. Usually go from tiny to big, but I noticed I might have jumped to that big brush a bit too quickly, because some of the detail got lost. Okay. I do it a bit. You know, there's this crease here that the eyelid makes. I'm doing it there, just outside that line, to give it a bit of a curve. Do it just below the eyebrow to give it a bit of a curvature, a sense of curvature. It doesn't matter too much what I do here. It's already the right shape. I might just unite some of that sponge work. I essentially did some sponge work in kind of quite a random shapes, and I just need to bring the facial features back a bit. There's some shadow on certain areas of the nose, and if you have that photo in front of you, you'll see where they are. So just imitate those. You can already see that the purple in the face there isn't quite as purple anymore. Starting to become more red, so that's great. Maybe some of those wrinkles, accentuate them a little bit. Make them too straight. I might need a little bit more sponge work here in this area of the face, especially when I look at the photo. Okay, I've got this line in there, and it's right here, but there's also quite a bit of shadow, but of a lighter variety right here. So let me bring that in, see if I can get that done with this lighter color, this dirty red. Just sponge it in quickly. Okay. Yeah. There's not too much light shining on his forehead. And yeah, nobody really likes a shiny forehead anyways. Though this is not what people like as much as what is there, but yeah, I think for compositional purposes, it looks okay. Done with that thing. It looks good if our highlights on the face are around the eyes. This thing below the eyes. Okay, the bridge of the nose between the eyes, the nose. That'll bring out the eyes nicely. Let me grab a big brush and quickly do some work on that neck. The neck is quite in shadow, so let me just kind of put in that shadow area a bit more. You can see going over that sponge work with a brush now, and so much of the texture just whoosh. Okay, it's gone. So yeah, although it looked wild a little bit ago, it's not that bad. I'm sponging the beard area quickly to bring it to the same tone. So with that dirty red, there goes all my dirty red. Now we're working with a similar tone there. I'm just sponging an edge here. Okay, that didn't quite work. How does that look? Maybe a little bit more here. I squint my eyes while looking at it to see if I missed anything. maybe grab a little mark. This is the dancing brush. If you're Bob Ross or something like that, or Frank Hatter for that matter, just lightly touching it. Okay. Let me not forget about the bottom of a nose. The bottom of a nose is usually a little in shadow. So those are easy, quick things to put in. Yeah. Okay, but this part does not look in shadow on the nose, so I guess I shouldn't, but I'm really tempted to, because noses can be pretty predictable, but maybe not this nose. The nose knows nobody knows. Okay. So making this corner a little darker because running on a paint. It was too light. Okay, that makes that nose pop forward a bit. We needed that. Okay, I think I'm going to give this a quick dry. And I'll just pause the video while I'm drying, and then we'll continue with the orange. All right, I have given that a try. Let's do this, what I call the orange part, in two steps. Let's start with a red orange, quite red, and then we'll go to a light orange. So what do I have on my palette here? I have a red that has dried up, so let me put some water there and reactivate that. I need quite a bit of each. I have the orange already ready to go here. That one, how dark is that one? Okay, that's good. That's good for an orange. So it's red, got some red here. But definitely add some yellow. And let's see if we can approximate that skin color here. I'm going to do this with a 1-inch brush. The brush will be soft. That way, I hope not to, oh, that's too much. I hope, maybe not. I hope not to, agitate the paint too much, because there's lovely detail that I don't want to touch too much. And so I will use a soft brush, and when I do these washes, I just go over it once. I don't go over it too many times. Let's see. Now, if I were to do a good version of this, I would spend a little bit more time on some of these details. I find this area pretty rough, but the idea here is to just do a quick version. Essentially every part of this painting where we did, 1 or 2 layers of this, or 1 or 2 or 3 layers of that color, we can expand that by going, no, let's do 4 or 5 or 6 if I want to be more perfectionistic about it, so I can really graduate that dark to light with all the necessary details of a serious version. Okay, this red that I've made here, red-orange, will go in the darker areas. So I'm not going to cover the whole area, the whole face. That'll be with the orange here, which I think is a bit too much. Yeah, a bit water. Now we'll just go with the red. Okay. Well, let me do that on the tester because I've come this far. Come on. Don't want to mess up that face. Okay, that's too much. So let's add some water there. You can see how far I'm pressing the syringe. This is where a syringe comes in handy. If you just have a bucket of water, you can pour it. That'll work. I've seen that work semi-successfully. Let's see. Okay, that's better. Let's go with that. Well, folks, this is it. Could go really well or not well at all. I got some kitchen towel here. Maybe I'll grab a second piece here, just in case something goes wrong. Then I have something to dab it up with and do some damage control. Okay. What I think is I'll paint slightly too far in that neck area and then dab it up. Yeah, maybe. We shall see. Yeah, sometimes with the towel you can get a nice bit of fade. Just reduce that color a bit if you tap it lightly. Look at what I did here. Okay, I like that. Here we go. Let's do, we haven't spent a lot of time on the mouth. It's okay to receive some red. So I have put in some details in the mouth, as you can see. Okay, across the beard. If you can, one big swoosh, not two big swooshes. Whoop-ah. Okay, that edge needs to be slightly creative. There. Up, up. Okay. If you can, one big swoosh, not two big swooshes. But sometimes you have to go over it twice. Sometimes. Just going to pay some attention to this edge here. This can touch the eye, and that's fine. Okay. Just a little bit too red here. Where's that photo? So there's this area here. It touches the nose, sure. There's a bit of a triangle of light here below that nose, so we'll try to keep that, and we'll cover it with the orange. Okay, bottom of the nose. Mustache area. Oh, hang on, I already did that. Some of the dark areas of the nose. Around the eye, not in the eye white. So as soon as you get something in that white of the eye, try to get it out. It'd be nice to keep that white. We'll do a bit of shadow work on it later, but not right now. One thing at a time. Okay. That ear can be redder. Maybe. Let's just do the, oh, this will be fun. Let's just do the inside of the ear red. Kind of thing. And then the rest will just go over with orange. Then we have a bit of a, here, more red in there. Yeah, bingo. That way we'll get a bit of color difference on that ear from the inside and the outside of the ear. That'll make it look also somewhat more realistic. At least that's what we hope for. Okay. A bit of a rough edge on the cheek here. Just gonna dab that off. If you want a faded edge to a wash you just made, sometimes dabbing works. Not the 2015 dance move, but yes, with a paper towel. Although arguably back in 2015 people called it dancing, but it wasn't much of a dance. Okay. Oh, I think I colored outside the lines there. Okay. Clean my brush. I'm grabbing a clean brush here to just fix one of my mistakes. And using the tissue. Yeah. You thought coloring outside the lines was a good thing. There. Now this background, we're going to give it a color, but for now I don't want to mess around with it too much. Okie dokie. Here we go. This is the first red layer. Oh, super exciting. I think I missed a small spot here. Yeah. Definitely don't overwork this at all because you'll lose so much of the texture. I think I've been pretty good in terms of not overworking it. As a matter of fact, let me add a bit more red. This looks so purple, it's almost unreal. There. So this would be a second layer of red. Putting it on top of a moist layer. It's not always how I do things. If I'm losing all my details, I will not put it on top of a moist layer because I will lose more details. But if I've got enough details, like right now, then I'm okay with it. Yeah, my details, especially here, the top of the cranium, it shows up quite nicely. It's a little bit more subdued in real life. The camera exaggerates the contrast a little bit too much. Okay. Any areas where it's really red? Maybe the forehead. Let's put a bit of extra there. Here, I'm going to blend it out a bit. I'm dipping my water in clear water. I'm dipping my brush in clear water. So that's what's on my brush now. It's just clear water. I'm shaking it out a bit, but it's just making sure it's not too bad. I'm just going to go over these edges here. It was a bit too sharp for me. So there. Just softening the cheek edges too. But now I need my paper towel to dab that up right away. So there we go. I think that light area goes down here a bit. So this will make for a softer edge. I'm just going to such hard edges. I don't think that last layer of orange would have solved all of those hard edges. Yeah, this is if my painting is not soft enough, this is what I'll do: clear water and a paper towel. Just kind of work it, and then you lose your highlights. But then with the paper towel, you just dab and you regain the highlights. Okay, I'm going to soften this one up. There. Just clear water mostly. There. Yeah, okay, I like that. How's that? Don't forget about this little corner. There's a highlight coming from this side though, so I just need to make sure that this edge is dabbed up a bit, so we mimic that highlight. We can do some paint removal there. Also, this will also help with that highlight. But the paint removal will be right at the end. And this we can do now. How does that nose go? There. Something like that. Let's dry it off. Alrighty, I've given that a quick dry. Now let me focus for a moment on those lips because they're a bit out of shape. I've got some of the shadows in there. I've got that top line that's in shadow. I've got here a little spot, that's good. Okay, the bottom part is redder. So let me just get some red here. The bottom part really is just light red. So we have some red, and we have some water. Let's see what we can do with that. I know we'll need to give a bit of roundness to it by making light and dark areas. We can do that either before or after this layer. Might be better actually before. Here we are. Okay. The top lip is browner. It's more brown. So why don't I have a bit of orange here? Let me use that orange. You can just see it in the corner there. Yep. Not sure. It's strong enough. Mixing on the fly. Okay. Let's give that a quick try. Okay, that top lip I'm not happy with. That's going to look funny. Okay, none of that orange. Let's approach it slightly differently. Let's go in, guess what, with a purple. Okay, this will be a red purple. Yep. And I've got it right here. Just make sure it's dark enough. Yeah, that's the lovely thing about watercolor paints. They sort of indefinitely reactivate. Okay, there's a darker part to this lip, and it's right here. Almost not dark enough. There. It's the shadow that the top lip casts over the bottom lip. And it kind of goes into these little lines that are on the lip, which I had already done with a bit of blue violet. Okay. The bottom of the lip. There's a dark patch here, shadow area. A little bit at the bottom. There, purples. Yep, purples for the wind. And of course, it's the here, the little bit on the bottom part of the top lip curve. And then here at the top. But let's not try to make that such an obvious line. So we'll do it on his right side, our left, and then I'll do it here in the corner, but I'm going to skip this part just to give some variation, because otherwise it just looks like we're outlining, we're cartooning, but we're not actually observing shapes very well. Whoa, mamma mia. That was a bit too ambitious. Oh no. Oh yeah. Now I'm for sure gonna get in trouble. Okay. Ooh. Quick dry. Okay. Running out of pans here. Let's clear this one out for a moment. I need more red. Need more red. Bigger brush. Yeah. Good thing there's lots where that came from. Mighty. Okay. How do we create a darker color? Just add its opposite. A bit of green. There. It's quite a dark red. Yeah, the mouth is so important. The eyes are perhaps next in important is the mouth. So when that mouth looks a little silly, go back to it and see if you can fix it. Okay, the key with watercolor, of course, what I often see is people who will watercolor. I will not give it the time to dry. So it just becomes one big soup on the page, on the paper. So the stuff I'm making now, I'm definitely gonna have it dry and then apply more. Okay, I've done the darkest parts now. The next thing will be the shadow in the middle of his mouth. There's a darker area there. But first, you guessed it. Let it dry. Okay, you can do some of these areas. There. I think I also made that mouth a little bit too big. The lips are a bit too big. Oy, oy, oy. Let's quickly dry that. Alrighty. Now that that's dry, I'm gonna use this same red, but I'm spreading some water, so having a thinner version of it. I've got some water on the brush, and I move that water alongside this pan just to pick up some thinner version of that same red. There, a little bit darker. A little darker in the corner. I need some highlights, but not too many. We can retrieve some of those highlights if necessary. Okay, I'll just throw purple on the top. Mostly here. Oh, way too much water. Even. Everyone has their struggle moments, that's for sure. Corners of the mouth usually a little bit darker. Some highlights somewhere in the middle of that whole sort of lip thing. Another paper towel. Just going to localize those highlights. See if I can retrieve them now that it's still wet. Where did that scrubby brush go? So I'm letting that mouth dry a little bit now. Using my scrubbing brush to retrieve a bit of the highlight at the bottom. All right, we've given some shape to it. We all know that mouth has two lips and an opening in the middle, but it's one of the toughest things. Sometimes. Some mouths and some paintings, you're just struggling. Okay, let's let it dry for now, otherwise we're just creating a big soup. Good. Well, what's next is that layer of orange over the whole thing. We'll have to be careful how much we touch the lips. Maybe give it a quick dry. So that orange layer. There we go. I've got an orange here. Let's test it one more time. Oh, that's good. Okay. We'll put it over everything, all the skin exposed areas, minus, I'll try to avoid the eyes. We'll treat those separately. So I'll just start in the corner and off I go. My paper is a bit curved, so I'm just holding it down. Gonna avoid the very outside there. I think, well, you know what, maybe I'll paint it quickly, but I'll dab some of it up. Don't worry too much about getting on that jacket. Doesn't really matter. There. That ear. Okay. There. Then we got that cool color in the on his back there. Lovely. Yeah. Okie dokie. Keep the highlighted areas wet. Because in a moment we'll use a paper tissue to dab it off there. A bit of pooling going on here. Let's see, is this orange enough? Might have to do a second layer, and that's okay. That would be okay. I'm losing some of the darks, which I know was going to happen. That'll be where we go next, after maybe one or two oranges. So, we did a red over the whole face minus the highlights. Then we worked on the lips for a sec, and now we're doing that orange. Okay, make sure. Okay. I think the orange is not strong enough. I'm seeing too much purple still. I think our second layer would be nice to do. It would have been nice to have done a dark layer of orange and then a light one. We might have to reverse that order. Yeah, I did this one a long time ago. Sometimes an approach works and sometimes, but this is not too bad. Quickly fix this corner here. Okay, let's give that one a dry. could see there my patented drying technique at work. Alrighty, I am going to make a second layer of orange here. I have my orange, and we'll just add a bit of yellow. Okay, someone's enthusiastic. And a bit of red. This is a quite primary orange. Secondary, nice. Let's see, a little bit of water. Don't want to quite make him look, you know, like he's got something disease going on. There we go. First layer of orange is done. And now the second one. Starting somewhere else, doesn't really matter. Going to the outside, but I'll wash that away in a sec to expose that blue there. Okay. Nice, 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 nice. There. Okie. Because we love our purples, but we just use them as an undercoat. Don't need to see too much purple. I'm trying to get as realistic to his skin tone as possible. So we made it dark with the purples, which was important. And now I hope to make it Will Smith's actual skin tone by adding orange to that purple. Okay. I'm going to see if that works. Made it work once. Here. But quickly get that out of the highlight areas, because it's especially in those highlight areas that it'll show up. Now you get to be a bit creative with your tissue here. Yeah, that's right. You're creating some of these shapes with your tissue. Okay, so constantly look at that photo, go, okay, where is it light? And that's where you need to dab it up with the tissue. Not the big highlights, but just the medium highlights. And the big highlights too, but yeah, all the lighter areas. So on his forehead, that'll look nice, I think. I think I went a bit too far. Over his eyebrow, it's quite okay if it's orange there. Yeah. And the eyebrow is not as dark as it was. So we made it in the beginning, but that's okay. It's starting to dry up. It's moist. A last chance on recovering some of the highlights for this layer at least. Okay, well, not too bad. All right, and next step, oh, you'll be amazed in the next step. We're gonna go over it with quite a dark color. Okay, how's that looking?
I noticed that on the highlight area, my blue is slightly gone, so I'm just wetting that with clear water. As much as my water is still clear here, it's fairly clear. This one. There. You just want to get that illusion of a highlight. Okay, while that's drying, I mean, it's quite moist, so it's always nice to wait a bit until it's dry before you go on it with the blow dryer. Sometimes you blow dry the paint all over the place, and then you gotta start all over. Let's see. Just get some of these finer highlights in. I think here in this area I was a bit too enthusiastic with that sponge because that purple is so strong there. It doesn't blend in nicely like I had hoped it would. It's also partially because of course I dabbed it up again. So I'm going over there with some orange again to see if I can smoothen out those rough patches. A little bit of skin texture is okay, but that's better. Yeah, if you look at it from about 10 meters, it looks great. $10 meters and squinting your eyes. Not sure if I can recover that blue this way. Just grabbed a bit of blue. That's okay. This is the artistic rendering. Alrighty, and drying it. Okie dokie. Let me put a little bit of orange in the eyes. The way to do the eyes is, I generally like this method, is by creating a bubble of water and of colored water, essentially, of paint with water, and dropping that in the area of the eye once the darks have been put in the eye. So I'm making a brown here. That's not very difficult. Yeah. And I'm just gonna drop them, and the whole eye is essentially just one wet drop. Make sure not to go outside of it. And so I've put those darks in the eye already, the darks that have little lines going inwards. And I've drawn the iris. So on top of all of that, I put a wet dot of the color that I want the eye to be, the iris. And I'm just going to let that dry. And that takes a while. That takes a good 10 minutes. Here on my big version of this drawing, you can kind of see what I did to the eyes of Will Smith there. Now, he looks slightly reptilian in this one. So don't pay too much attention to this, but I think in this small one we'll get away with it. So you might lose some of your darks, but we'll just re-put them back in. Okay. What do we got now? Looking at this, yeah, it's dry. We see the right tones, but what we've lost a little bit are the darks. So we're going to make a really dark color, almost black, but it's going to be a really dark purple, and we'll need quite a bit of it. So we need a good chunk of blue. And yeah, if you're working with one of these, you could of course decide to go with the black. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you don't have tubes to put lots on a palette, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So you'll need a really dark color, just like this. I'm putting the 3 primaries, and I'm adding very little water, and that's how you get a dark color. Okay. That part's pretty straightforward. The advantage of doing this over having a tube of black paint, which I don't own, is of course the rich black that you'll get this way. On the camera it's probably difficult to see. Right now it's a bit brownish. And brown. It looked like it was a reddish brown, so I'm just adding some blue to cool things down here. Yeah, this is sure going to make a mess of your whole brush if you do it with tubes like this. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with this. You gotta find that sweet spot with watercolor. If you have too little water, what you get when it dries up is a shiny area. And that looks really bad. So you gotta add just enough water to avoid that when it dries up, you get these shiny pasty areas. So, oh, look how that becomes gray. Nice. All right. We'll throw some of this on the jacket too, but we'll start with some of the areas of the face. Make sure you don't hit those eyes because those are still wet. As much a note to self as anything. Okay, so you can see here in the eyebrows that we've kind of lost that really dark of the eyebrow because we went over it so many times. Like the darks are going to get picked up first. So this is our chance to retrieve the darks that we put in at first for good reason. We're now going to find back. And then you'll be surprised how light our painting actually was, because these darks, poof, they really pop out. We might have to do a couple of layers of this with a lighter one after this, so as to soften things up here. All right, this is the dancing brush technique again, where we just barely touch it. Okay. Maybe just avoid going close to that paint in the eye. We will do that when it's dried up. Ooh. Okay. That was a bit too enthusiastic. This sure is dark paint. Alrighty. This is when you get to put in the most hair-like hairs. Arguably, I think mine are more like dots. Yeah. See how dark that is? Yeah. You thought you were dark before with those purples and everything, but this is the darkest dark we're gonna get with the paint here. Big brush, you bet. Maybe we will do a bit of dry brushing here because I'm kind of bored with how even it looks. a reminder that this is a quick demonstration. If you doing a good version, you can take your time on these things. Sometimes your brush just reaches that sweet spot, which it did just now, where you can dry brush your heart out. It doesn't give you big blobs. Just gives you little squigglies everywhere. That's when there's just enough moisture in the brush to paint, but for sure not enough to make a big mess. Yeah, this is dry brushing. So when I want to dry brush, sometimes what I do is I start in the darker areas to get rid of a bit of pigment that may or may not still be in my, too much in my brush. And when I'm in that dark area, that needs to get covered anyway, so I kind of discover how well my brush is doing dry brush at the moment, and then whichever area it seems most suitable for, I move there. In my dry brushing, I try to move in the direction of the hair, but yeah, I try. Let's see, don't want to make him look like he's all feathers everywhere. Oh. Yeah, sometimes it's nice if you have a cheap brush for this, or if you have a large budget, because this is not the nicest on the hairs of the brush. So don't do this with your most expensive brush. Okay, you can see now how that red of the lips kind of pops out now. That's quite enough. The red. Okay, a few touches on the ear. Some of those dark areas. Okay, let's do that jacket. Just dip my brush in a little bit of water something. The blue will be almost entirely gone. This is where the money goes. The black jackets cost the most paint. Okay. with a bit of a watery brush, let me just put a slight variation on here. There, let me just keep that bright for now. We'll let this dry for a moment. There. Cleaning my brush a little bit, but not entirely. There. A bit more of that shadow. With a cleaner brush, just blurring that edge a bit more. There. Cleaning my brush, making sure it's quite dry. So that way you can do that shadow and the gradient all in one go. But you need to get that technique down a bit. There's somewhat more of a shadow here behind this. Okay, of course, a key part that still needs to get done is those eyes. Which I can't because they're still wet. So in a moment we'll just pause the video and then come back at it in another 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah, it's nice when you do those eyes and you just take a break or something, or you go to bed and you come back to it at another moment. Using a wet brush to spread out those dark shapes a little bit. Oop. I realize I got a bit too enthusiastic here in this area. So with some clear-ish water, and my scrubby brush, see if I can do something about that. I like it when this area is white, like in the photo. I don't mind that. Because that indicates there's light coming from this area, which works well with that highlight on his neck. I might just throw a color there, and we can decide what color. Maybe a blue. I really don't know. A green. green might help with his skin tone to come out nicely. Okay, I think I will put a green in that background. Let's see how that turns out. We'll make it lightish. Oh, not that kind of green. There. That was the last bit of water from my syringe. So while the eye is still wet here, let me just help that along a bit. So this would be the way to create a wash, which is you start at one end and you hold your board at an angle. And what will happen then is you'll see a puddle at the bottom. And you want to create that puddle, keep that puddle there at all times so that that bottom is wet. And here at the top, try that one more time. Okay. There. The water will slowly seep down. So you got to keep this board at this angle. And this is how you create an even wash. By keeping that puddle at the bottom. And then when you reach the end, you dab out any excess paint here. I'm seeing a bit of an area here. Not sure where that comes from, because my technique was quite all right. Just going to use a bit of water here to let that all drip down some more. You know what I think what happened here is I scrubbed the paper too much. So what you're seeing is paper that is agitated too much, and it receives the paint differently. I could know better. There. Well, a slightly textured background is not the worst that could have happened. I think I will have a slightly different green on this side. So we'll use the same technique. I'm also holding it still in this position because the water, the paint on this side is still dripping down. So what I did here was a very light green that was based on a phthalo. And here I have a green at the bottom at least. And we'll continue with the green from the other side. The green that's more based on ultramarine. Oh, we just have an emergency. Okay. There goes my perfect wash technique. But all is not lost. All is not lost. There. Might do a second coat on this background. So, we have the beginnings of a background. I'm going to let this dry while holding it at an angle. I'm going to refresh my water, clean this table a little bit, and I'll be back in a moment. Now that everything is dry, some of the finishing touches. I'm going to use that dark paint that I have to finish the details on the eye. And I use a round 6 here, but if you have a round 2, yeah, you know what? I'm going to use that one too. Where did it go? Okay, round 2. Just need something for those tiny details. There. We put the brown in the eyes, and now we're redoing some of the dark lines of the eye. There. And then when that is dry, we'll put in the shadow of the upper eyelid, and then we'll put in the eyelashes. Quickly, dark pupil, iris. There you go. Make sure the iris is, make sure you got that shape right. You got the position right, because if the position of the iris changes, all of a sudden the person looks in a different direction. Right. A little bit of dark area recovery on the mouth. There. See if we can use some of that dark red on the lips again. Just to create a little bit more of a shadow. Yeah, this is lovely. The lips are all dry now. I'm using a really tiny brush just to get in some of these details so it doesn't look so odd. There were just a few oddities with these lips. I'm not saying I solved them all yet, but getting there. Let's quickly do that jacket. Not very difficult. You need no water on no paint on your brush, maybe a little bit. All you essentially just need to do is go over it with a wet brush for a sec, or a different color. You can go over with blue, for example. Because this paint is so dark, it'll reactivate right away. And there you go. There we have the shapes. That the dark and the light areas of that jacket make. A little bit of that blue comes through. That's great. It's just what we want. Okay, and if we were to scrub this a little bit, we would see more of that blue come through, which is kind of fun. All right, the eye brushes, eyelashes. Oh no, hang on. Before I do that, there was supposed to be a shadow underneath the eyelids. There. Let's do that with a little bit of this color. Purple would have been fine too. Go figure. And the shadow also sits in the eye itself, in the iris. There. Okay. Just a little bit. Gotta watch out here. Oh, that's that glint in the eye. Okay. Quickly give that a dry. Now for the eyelashes. Don't make them too big. Just keep them nice. Nice and easy. And then, in a moment, we will erase the masking fluid and get that glint in the eye back. Oh, that's more than enough there. Yeah, the bottom has a couple of eyelashes. Oh, definitely don't give them too many. Just a bunch of stubbies. Good enough. Yeah, you want to do that at the very end. Okay, quick dry for that one. All right, the assumption we're making now is that I'm not going to touch the eyes anymore. Where's my eraser? And so now we are going to get rid of the masking fluid with the masking fluid eraser, which has a tendency to hide itself when it's needed. Now, if you don't have one, oh, I put it underneath here as a prop. Okay. If you don't have one, you do it with your finger. There we go. Whoa, yowza! That creates big wide areas. Oh, okay, needs a little bit of fixing. I can, for your convenience, zoom in on those eyes a bit. There. And that might be helpful. So I just erased the masking fluid. And now I'm just going to fix up those eyes. Going to make sure the iris is round, because that's of primary importance, perhaps. I had a bit of masking fluid going on the iris. Going to make sure this line, the masking fluid, it's easy to do too much, so, but then it's really easy just to paint over it and go back in and say, oop, this is the eye. Okay. How does that look? I think we're good on those eyes. Yeah. This ear could use a bit of work. See if I can do some work with orange here. That needs to be darker. There. That's why I had the masking fluid eraser underneath the palette. Okay, so the color I've got going here is this one. And I'm using that one for the ear. And it's somewhat thick. I could have used a redder color as well, because the ear has some red areas, reddish areas. So now I'm not using colors that are too crazy. I'm trying to get closer to what the top color should look like. Otherwise, we'll just keep at it with the crazy colors. It's got to stop. Okay, I've got here the red I used for the lips. Let's see if I can add a bit of that here on the inside to get a bit of a fleshy tone going. Okay, clear brush there. Yeah, just with some clear water, I do the middle to blend it all together real quick. And then we've just got a couple of colors going on in that ear, and that's nice for variation. If I really wanted to, I could do some highlights on that ear. I'll dry it quickly. Alrighty, so this is a good technique you can use in all kinds of areas. Say you want a bit of a highlight in certain parts of the ear, because there sure are, maybe at the bottom, maybe here in this area, maybe this middle part here. Then with a scrubby brush, once it's all dry, there, oops, almost too much. With a scrubby brush and a bit of clear water, get some highlights quite okay. Yeah, especially this top one is worked out well. Now on the, we see a few more highlights here on the nose especially. So let's see if we can put those in real quick. There. There's one here at the bottom. So this is paint removal. This is the technique I promised way at the beginning. With a very cheap Crayola scrubby brush. This is a flat
I don't know, flat 2 or something like that. It's a short-handled brush, which all watercolor brushes are, right? When you're standing at an easel, that's when you want those long-handled brushes because you want full arm movement. When you're sitting at a table, you want short-handled brushes. Look at that. Oh. Just that little bit of highlight creates a lot of lifelikeness. You can't always retrieve. If you've just got very light paint going on here and you want to make it even lighter, that's pretty hard. But if you've got a really dark area, paint removal is quite easy. So I'm just scrubbing back and forth with some clear water, cleaning my brush every time in water, then drying it. Oh, there. Bit of a highlight here. And there's another one right here. Work a little bit with the colors that you've got. I noticed that my colors are not quite the same as on the photo. So work with where you placed yours. And that's important. Oh, look how that improves it. Oh, amazing. And a bit of paint removal here. I was quite worried about this, but now I'm getting hopeful again. You know, maybe it's going to be okay after all. Oh, look at this. Paint removal for the win. Okay, I hope you're not that desperate that you want to remove your entire painting. That's a bit too much. That's when you start with a new sheet of paper. But so you dab it up with some paper cloth. Super important. Here, let's do some paint removal here because I made this a little bit too dark. So. There. If I really felt like it, I could redo that background. If I were doing a more serious version, I most certainly would put a second coat on there. But I'd have to watch out that I don't do the eyelash, but do the background first and then do that eyelash. Otherwise, every time I do the background, that eyelash gets fuzzied out. I'm here right now. That's enough. Very careful with how much. Really easy to do too much with lips. Oy, 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 oy. We're going at warp speed here. Guess you can also kind of tell my age when I use that expression. Yeah, so on the big example that I showed you earlier, you might remember I did, where is it? I did the lips with masking fluid, and this is masking fluid just erased. I still need to scrub it in, essentially, fuzzy the outsides, so I blend it in more naturally. I kind of started to do that here, but that's sometimes the downside of masking fluid is
yeah, that it's difficult to fuzzy those lines. Here, I did not put masking fluid on any of the lip and nose areas, so I have to do paint removal. Okay. Starting to sound repetitious. Give his cheek, his jawbone. I'm going to give that one a bit of emphasis here. Okay, excellent. Where are we at? Okay. Did that improve things a little bit? Yep, I think especially for the eyes, we have some more likeness in those eyes with those highlights and on those eyelashes. Whoops, there. Yes, that definitely improves things. Could I have done things better? Yep. Yeah, I definitely see some areas. Maybe if you're doing this with me, you're also seeing some areas in which you wish you had done things differently. But sometimes that's life. You want to press undo, but realize that that's only on a computer and not in life. And such are things. So, as Bob Ross says, you can make them happy little clouds. What to do, though, when your painting doesn't have clouds? But, you know, make them happy little trees or happy little wrinkles in a face. Okay, we could do this till the cows come home. I think I overdid that on his ear. It just looks like this massively shiny ear. Okay, granted, in the photo, it also does that. Okay, maybe I need to calm down. I see one little highlight that I forgot. That one. So here we have it. What went well? I think I went a bit too strong in this area. Yeah, I almost maybe just want to grab a brush, a little bit of that orange that I still have here, just soften the hairs here. There. I think I went a bit too enthusiastic on these hairs. Okay, that's already much better, actually. Oh, should have thought of that earlier. Okay, I also think I went a bit too heavy on them here. Let's soften that up. Okay, ooh, where am I going? Okay, I'm blending out, not getting rid of all the hairs. Yeah, now it just looks like he has funny dark spots, so let's see if we can get rid of those two. Okay, that's more like that beard that he has. Just a couple of stubbles here. Arguably, the color is a bit questionable. Yeah, I'm retrieving too much of that purple here. I'm losing the orange the orange layer that I put on top of here. No, that's just, I'm just selectively dabbing here away here. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry because I think I'm just creating a soup there now. All that nice little detail that I had there is seems to be is like, yeah, I'm removing it. Don't want that. I think this beard in general just was a bit strong on the individual hairs. I can see exactly where the hairs go, but the hairs weren't quite accurate, so it was it just looked a bit funny. So going over it with a bit of a wet brush, selectively hitting some of these harsh hairs. I think I like that. Also, it was just a bit too prickly at the bottom. Okay, I just realized that I don't have a lot of these lines in the neck that he has. So let me see, quickly put some of that stuff in. Maybe this paint's a little too yellow, but okay, I better call it quits.
Okay, keep at it forever. All right, and that is it for today. There we go. Thank you for joining me in this wild adventure to do a smashing hit of a Will Smith. Yeah, how did yours turn out? Did yours turn out just as disastrous as mine? Here we have it. Well, can I give this one to my mom? Well, maybe. How did it turn out in comparison to the other version that I created a while back? Well, I certainly made this one more yellow. The highlights on the face are more yellow. Some of the skin tones are quite the same. Okay, you know, overall, not too bad. When we have that photo next to it, that could be, oh, my hand is not on top of it. Okay, that could be worse. Okay. Well, here you have it, folks. Will Smith in multicolor. It was a pleasure to show you.